Hi guys, so today's video is going to be another funny one-star reviews, and specifically it's going to be for Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. For those of you who have never seen this series on my channel, it's where I take a very beloved popular book or series and I find all the people who don't feel the same. Even if you haven't read the book, and in today's case, Warbreaker, I am not going to ever give away any spoilers in the one-star reviews that I read to all of you, and I'm also going to give you a synopsis of the book so you can still have a good chuckle at how reasonable all of these reviews are. Getting into the story of Warbreaker, we follow a few main characters from a couple of different kingdoms. These two kingdoms are currently at odds and we're on the brink of war, and in order to try and keep war from happening, the one kingdom with the two sisters is going to marry one of the sisters off to the king of the other kingdom. One sister who is supposed to marry the god king of the other kingdom ends up not being the one that her father sends. Instead, he sends the youngest daughter, who is not prepared whatsoever, and the older daughter decides that she's going to try and rescue her sister. Another of the main characters comes from this kingdom that Ciri and Vivenna are supposed to go to, and this character's name would be Lightsong. He is a returned being. He once died and came back and is now a living god, and he has a bunch of other gods that he's surrounded by, and he doesn't understand what makes him holy or what makes people revere him, and he kind of thinks it's a big joke. In typical Sanderson fashion, there is a very fascinating, interesting magic system, and on top of that, with this particular book, while there isn't tons of action, there is a lot of political intrigue. Getting into the one-star reviews now, sometimes I will read the review in its entirety, sometimes I will read a snippet. This first one I'm going to read a snippet of, and it says, "I didn't connect with the story, the characters, or the world building." Well, I didn't connected with anything at all, to be sure. I read like half of the book, then I went to Wiki and looked up the finale because I couldn't stand all that nothing. The next one says, "Where do I even start with this review? I genuinely have no idea. Maybe I'll go with, I don't think I'll ever read Sanderson again after this. The book itself, maybe 2 stars, maybe 2.5. But I can't give it more than 1 star, and I'd give it lower if I could, due to the amount of harmful tropes in it." The next one says, "Although entirely unique, the magic was too complicated for a one-book story. A lot of time was spent explaining the ins and outs and then repeating it later on, almost like Sanderson was having to explain it to himself to keep it clear in his mind." This next one says, "I keep telling myself it was okay, but it really was not. The first step to recovery is acceptance. I accept I've been had. To a newcomer of Sanderson, stay away. There are so many better books. Do not lose hope, young one. If you're reading out of sheer will to finish the Sanderson multiverse, which is called the Cosmere, go ahead, just, I'm so sorry for you." The same person goes on to say, "Raw plot is good, but the whole book needs tidying up and rewriting. The title should read Notes on How to Ruin a Good Idea, or Interlude between some really interesting events in other characters and stories. So slow. Everyone seems to love it, but I don't see the appeal. I'll mention some of the problems I encountered, but I won't give details/spoilers because, who would possibly want to know some backup for the criticisms you have?" This next review says, "My real issues with the book came from its plot holes. There were several things that were either never explained or were thrown in simply to misdirect the readers. To add to that, the end felt rushed, and then it ended abruptly. We never got closing thoughts from Ciri. Many questions were left unanswered or given extremely vague answers, and there was no epilogue telling us how certain events set in motion at the end turned out. If this were a series, all this could make sense, but this seems to be a standalone novel. Edit. I now see that this was intended to be a series, so that could explain some things, but it's been 7 years and no second book has come out yet, so my critique stands until that happens. All in all, this was an interesting and enjoyable read, so long as you don't dwell on the plot holes." Still gave it 1 star though. Oh, and there is an epilogue. This next one says, "Lots of reviews on this one, probably don't need to add another, save that I am in the minority who cannot find anything in this book to rave about. Warbreaker, believe it or not, is my first introduction to Brandon Sanderson." No way! The contemporary ubiquitous penchant for flip-flopping among characters and storylines as some sort of imagined but necessary element in good writing is too much in evidence here. I did make it to the end though. Whoopee. Next one says, "Fool me once, Sanderson, shame on you. Fool me twice, ellipses. I can't believe I tries another Sanderson novel. I got tricked in with all the positive reviews and the heft of his name, but his writing is so trite and shallow. I think I was halfway through listening to the book on disc when I finally gave myself permission to quit. In Sanderson's defense, the awful voices from the voice actor didn't help, but even if Jim Dale read his books, they would be flops. No third chance for this author. So this next one isn't particularly long, but there's one sentence in it that I don't get. It says, "The map in the front of a book always presents an almost insurmountable, unfavorable first impression for me." And then they don't elaborate whatsoever. The next one says, "I originally gave this book 2 stars because I didn't want to go as low as 1 for the author of Way of Kings, but I have been thinking about it since, and it really is an awful book. Therefore, with much regret, I have to reduce the star rating. Sorry, Brandon. Please don't mess up the Stormlight Archive. Please, please, please." You guys ever think that there are people who have really, really, really difficult lives that kind of hate us for contemplating whether a book should have a certain star rating or not? The next one says, "Okay, I really loved his Alcatraz books, so I went on Faith and looked up another of his books, and I got this one. Bad choice, slow-moving, erotic, and boring. Some clever use of breath, color, and sound, and God references. Couldn't even finish. Very disappointing. However, The Mistborn comes highly recommended. I'll give him another try." The next one says, "I hate to say it, but this was not even close to my favorite." The 1 star totally didn't give that away. "I found the story to be very disappointing. Don't get me wrong, I usually love Sanderson's works, but in this case, I was worried that a different author with the same name was trying to ride some coattails." This one's entire 1 star review says, "Vomit-inducing dialogues." Unlike that one, the next one is super, super long, but I'm not gonna read it all. I'm just gonna read a couple of snippets. And we're gonna start with the beginning, which says, "I think I just aged 50,000 years while reading that. This sentence sums up all of my thoughts on Warbreaker." Then they go on to let us know literally all of their thoughts while reading Warbreaker. They go on to say, "No joke, I don't even have the strength to give this 1.5 stars for the somewhat interesting magic system and Lightsong's passable sass. That's how tired I feel after finishing reading these piss pages. Yes, that's what they are. And because I'm so tired, I'm not even going to bother with a full and complex review. I'm just going to post all of the live notes I made." One of their live notes says, "This book does not understand pacing at all, gotta say." And another one says, "This sure isn't an action story, I must say. Not sure Sanderson was aware that action existed in 2011. Another note was, "Still irritated by the fact that our MC is named effing Siri." I don't think her name is effing Siri. I'm pretty sure her name is just Siri. At one point, they say, "When the characters themselves are bored, I'm pretty sure that's a sign you need to have a good long think on what narrative is." So, note to aspiring writers out there, your characters are never allowed to experience boredom. And toward the end, they say, "I honestly can't believe the amount of praise this book gets. I believe, and I'm saying this with my whole heart, most fan fiction you'll find on the internet is leagues better and far more deserving of being published. F this book and doubly F the author." Seems very reasonable. And the last one, I'll read the entire review. It says, "But I will say this is about as good as a novel can be while only meriting 1 star." Anyway, that's it for the funny 1 star reviews for Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. Let me know, for those of you who have read it, whether you agreed or disagreed with these 1 star reviews. And for those of you that are wanting to learn more about the Cosmere, more about Sanderson, I'll go ahead and link my Sanderson playlist along with another playlist for my other funny 1 star reviews. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.